Hey everyone, have you ever noticed that when you're trying to speak English, it's like there's this mental back and forth happening, like you're translating everything in your head, and it's just slowing you down.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to really dig into this idea of thinking in English.
It's so important.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think, oh, thinking in English means I have to, be some kind of genius and be able to, compose full sentences in my head before I even open my mouth. Yeah. But really, it's much simpler than that. And it's really the key to unlocking fluency.
I'd like if you think about learning to drive.
Yes.
At first, you're thinking about every single thing. Like, where's the gas pedal? Where's the brake?
Totally.
Which way do I turn the wheel?
Oh, yeah.
But then eventually, you're just driving.
Yeah, you're not even thinking about it. You're just...
Yeah, you get in the car and you go.
Yeah, and that's how we want you to feel about English. Like, you can just get in the car and go.
Hop in and have a conversation without all of that mental jump.
Get out of your head and just speak.
So for this deep dive, we're looking at a conversation between Alex and Sarah, who are sharing some tips on exactly this, how to break free from that translation trap and start thinking in English more naturally.
And what I find really interesting about this whole concept is that it applies to so many other skills, Like, think about playing an instrument. Yeah. Like, when you first start learning, you're thinking about every single note, every fingering.
Right.
But eventually, you're just playing the music. Or coding. Yeah. Same thing. You're not thinking about every single line of code.
Yeah.
You're thinking about the bigger picture of the program you're creating.
You're in the flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even cooking, Like, when you first start learning a complicated recipe, you're following every step carefully. But with practice, you just know what to do.
Yeah.
You're thinking in the language of flavors and ingredients.
You're just cooking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about getting to that point with English where you're not thinking about the individual words and grammar rules, but you're thinking in the language itself.
You wouldn't think the word coffee in your native language.
Yeah.
You would just
think coffee.
Think coffee in English.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about making those little switches.
So like building up those connections in your brain.
One small connection at a time.
Yeah.
And remember, it's a process. Don't beat yourself up if you find yourself slipping back into your native language.
Right.
Just gently nudge yourself back to English.
It's all about building that habit rather than trying to be perfect right away.
It's not about perfection, it's about progress.
And one of the things I thought was really interesting is they talk about making your everyday world like a classroom.
I love this.
Yeah.
This is such a good tip because it uses your surroundings to teach you.
Yeah.
So they recommend labeling things around you in English.
Oh.
So as you go about your day, you're constantly reinforcing your learning.
So like if you're sitting at your desk, you would think desk in English rather than translating it in your head.
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
Chair, computer, window.
So you're turning all those everyday objects into mental flashcards.
Exactly.
I love that.
And they take it a step further.
Oh, do they?
They say don't just label things, but try to describe them too.
Oh, okay.
So instead of just thinking chair, you could think comfortable chair or wooden chair.
Right.
Or blue chair.
So you're not just labeling, you're actually
adding details.
Yeah.
You're expanding your vocabulary and you're training your brain to create more complex thoughts in English.
So you're like passively building sentences in your head as you're moving throughout your day.
Exactly.
Which is so cool. I love it.
It's like a little secret workout for your English brain.
And it doesn't feel like work.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just about being mindful and using the world around you as a learning tool.
And I think that's a really good point because sometimes people think that learning English has to be this
big formal thing.
Yeah, this big chore. And it's like, you can actually make it part of your everyday life and
have fun with it.
And another tip they highlight is the power of visualization.
Okay.
So instead of mentally translating the word apple into your native language, just picture an apple in your mind.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's about bypassing that translation step and connecting the English word directly to the image.
So you're cutting out the middleman?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it works with actions too.
Oh, does it? Give me an example.
Sure. So imagine you hear the word running.
Okay.
Instead of translating it, just visualize someone running.
Oh.
see how that creates a much more direct and engaging way to process the language.
Just like you're creating a little shortcut in your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about forming those associations that are directly linked to the English word, rather than using your native language as a go-between.
Okay, I like that.
And this next suggestion might feel a bit strange at first.
Okay.
But they suggest thinking aloud in English. So like talking to yourself.
Yeah. Even if it feels a little silly at first,
right,
it really helps because it forces you to actually produce the language rather than just passively absorbing it.
You're getting that practice.
You're practicing.
Even if it's just like in the privacy of your own home.
Exactly. And if you want to make it even more effective, try talking to yourself in front of a mirror.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's like giving yourself a little pep talk or a presentation rehearsal, but in English.
Yeah.
It can really boost your confidence.
I like that.
Yeah. And speaking of practice, Alex and Sarah also emphasize the importance of immersing yourself in English as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
So they suggest watching English movies and shows, listening to podcasts, reading English books, anything that gets you comfortable with the natural flow of the language.
And even if you're not catching every single word, it's just getting you used to it.
It's about getting your brain used to the sounds and the rhythms of English. And they suggest not just passively consuming, but actively engaging with the content.
Okay, how do you do that?
So repeat phrases that you like, try to use new words in your own sentences, and even jot down interesting expressions or idioms.
So you're making it like an active experience rather than just having something on in the background.
Exactly. Make it interactive.
And then they have this other tip that I thought was really interesting, which is they talk about thinking about your day in English.
Yeah, I love this one.
So you're not just replaying the events.
Right.
You're narrating them in English.
You're becoming the narrator of your own life in English.
So I could be like,
yeah,
this morning I woke up early and then I had cereal for breakfast. And then
exactly.
And I went for a walk.
Simple but effective.
Yeah.
And the more you do this, the more naturally you'll start to think in English, even when you're not making a conscious effort.
It becomes less about translating and more about just thinking.
Exactly. It starts to become instinctive.
I like that.
It's like you're training your brain to experience the world through an English-speaking lens.
It's like putting on a new pair of glasses.
Exactly.
And you're seeing everything.
And suddenly the world is in English.
In English.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
And another valuable tip they highlight is finding a language partner to practice with.
That's such a good one. Because it's one thing to practice by yourself, but having someone else there to
bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, and to kind of...
And to get feedback from...
Make it more real.
Yeah, it makes it real.
What do they say about the benefits of that?
Well, they emphasize that having a language partner gives you a safe space to try things out, make mistakes, and get feedback.
It takes the pressure off.
It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
And it's more fun.
Yeah, it's more fun to learn with someone else.
Absolutely. You can motivate each other and celebrate those small wins together.
And do they give any tips for...
Yeah, they talk about...
how to make the most of that practice.
How it helps you pick up on vocabulary and cultural nuances that you might not find in textbooks.
It's like real-world English.
It's real-world English.
Yeah.
It's the English that people actually use.
Because sometimes I feel like, you know, you can learn all this stuff from a textbook, but then you get out in the real world and people are...
Yeah, they're using slang.
Using slang and idioms and...
And they're talking about things that you would never find in a textbook.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, wait, I didn't learn that word.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's good to have that practice.
It's essential.
And sometimes I feel like I get self-conscious when I'm practicing with someone, especially if it's like...
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning, and I make mistakes, and I'm like, oh, gosh, I messed that up.
But they actually say that mistakes are an essential part of learning any language.
Right.
They even encourage you to embrace them.
Yeah, because you can get so caught up in trying to be perfect.
Exactly.
And then you're not even speaking.
You're so worried about making a mistake that you don't even speak.
Exactly.
And that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Because when you make a mistake, you're more likely to remember the correct way to say it next time.
It's like it sticks in your brain.
It sticks in your brain.
Yeah.
And don't be shy about asking your partner for clarification if you're not sure about something.
I think that's a good point because I think, especially when you're learning a language, it's so easy to just kind of smile and nod.
Right.
And pretend like you understood what someone said.
Yeah.
But it's like...
But it's better to ask.
It's better to ask.
And learn.
Yeah.
than to just stay silent and miss that opportunity.
Okay, so what if you don't have someone you can practice with in person?
They suggest checking out online language exchange apps.
Oh yeah, I've heard of those.
They specifically mentioned HelloTalk and Tandem as good options.
It's so cool because you can connect with people from all over the world.
Yeah, it's like having a global network of language buddies.
And you can find people who share your interests.
Exactly. So you have more to talk about.
Yeah.
It makes the practice more engaging.
That's awesome.
It is.
So we've covered a lot of really practical tips.
Yeah.
Did they have any final thoughts about
they do.
this whole process of learning to think in English?
They stress the importance of being patient with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking in English, like any skill, takes time and effort.
That's true.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Because it's so easy to get discouraged if you don't see results right away.
Exactly. And that's why they remind us that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay.
And they suggest focusing on celebrating how far you've come rather than getting hung up on how far you still have to go.
It's like giving yourself credit for all the progress you've already made.
Exactly.
Even if it doesn't feel like a lot.
Even if it's just a tiny step.
Yeah.
Celebrate it.
I remember when I first started learning English, I could barely put a sentence together.
Yeah.
And now look at you having this conversation with such fluency.
You're doing amazing.
You're right.
You've come so far.
Sometimes it's easy to lose sight of how much you've actually learned.
It is. So acknowledge and celebrate those milestones.
Like being able to order a coffee without feeling flustered.
Exactly.
Or understand a joke on a TV show without the subtitles.
Those are all signs that you're on the right track.
It's like those are little proof points that your brain is starting to rewire itself.
Your brain is changing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So to sum it all up, Alex and Sarah have given us a really great,
fantastic set of tools for making thinking in English a reality.
We've talked about starting small, using our surroundings,
visualizing,
talking to ourselves,
and immersing ourselves in the language,
thinking about our day,
finding a language partner,
and being patient,
and celebrating our progress.
Yeah, and I think it's just a really good reminder that learning a language is about more than just memorizing grammar rules.
Yeah, it's about changing the way you think.
It's about changing the way you think.
Exactly.
It's about seeing the world through
a different lens.
An English-speaking lens.
An English-speaking lens.
And that just opens up
so many possibilities.
So many new possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think also it's important to remember that everyone's journey is different.
Absolutely.
There's no one right way to learn.
It's about finding what works for you and making it your own.
And that's a great place to wrap up this part.
This part of our deep dive.
Into thinking in English.
Into thinking in English. Yeah, it really is about creating your own your own unique language learning journey.
So as we're kind of wrapping up this deep dive into thinking in English, we wanted to leave you with something to think about.
A little challenge.
A challenge.
A little challenge to take with you as you go forth on your
English learning adventure.
Now that you've heard all these different strategies, what is one small change you can make today? To start thinking in English more often.
What's one tiny little step
you
can take today to move towards that goal of thinking in English more naturally?
Maybe it's, labeling a few things around your house.
Yeah, just a couple.
In English. Oh. Or maybe it's trying that mental narration of your day.
You just talk yourself through it?
In English.
In English.
Or maybe it's committing to watching one English show this week without any subtitles.
Love it.
Whatever it is, no matter how small it might seem.
It doesn't matter how small.
Take that step.
Take that first step.
And I think it's important to remember that every time you catch yourself thinking in English, you are rewiring your brain.
You are literally changing the structure of your brain.
Yeah.
You're expanding your possibilities and you're moving closer.
Yes, to that fluency you're aiming for.
So keep exploring. Keep practicing, and most importantly, keep having fun with it.
Happy learning. It really is.
It is. And that's all for this deep dive into thinking in English.
We hope you
enjoyed it.
Learned something.
And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.